welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Review podcast. I wasn't entirely sure I fancied doing it after this weekend's result, but after a few hours coming back in the car, I feel a little more balanced and a little bit more ready to discuss what has been obviously a tough day at the Stadium Light if you're a Sunderland fan. As I'm sure you know, it was a terrific first half performance from Sunderland and accounted for zero because basically Burnley overturned a 2-0 deficit to beat Tony Mowbray's side by 4-2. And Ross is in the midst of having a night out. And I think Dave is also in the midst of still driving back to the deep, dark south. So it's just two of us, which I'm sure you'll be pleased to know, but some would say it is the best. Joining me tonight is, of course, Brad Sharp. Brad, how are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I'm not bad, mate. It is a few hours later. I'm still in a bit of disbelief to what happened in that second half. Well, as people have seen on Twitter, my day was all about Archie, and he enjoyed it. So I'll stick with that positive for me.
Funny, I've got first thing here, so I'll get into the game. But obviously, first and foremost, Proud Dad Day. I think people would have seen on Twitter if they haven't. Obviously, the little man Archie was mascot for the first time today. How was his experience, mate? How was it?
Oh, he loved it. Got to kick him out on the pitch for a little bit, and then went in when the players were getting kitted up. Talked to them all, targeted Luke 09 straight away and said, I want to walk out with you. And Luke said, oh, you can if I play. And I was like, we've got no more centre halves, Luke. How are you going to be playing? And yeah, Luke was great with them when he came out. And it's just something that'll live with me forever. Something I never got to do, but living a dream through my kid.
I was going to say, did he? Because obviously we noticed from where we were sitting, he went on with 09, and obviously that's his favourite player. People might not be aware of, obviously, but how was Luke with him? Because he seemed to be like telling him to clap and wave, and it was quite nice to see. Because obviously we all know Archie. I know people listening maybe don't, but it was quite nice because Luke just is a good bloke, isn't he?
Yeah, Archie said he was a bit nervous in the tunnel to Luke, and I'm always nervous, so it doesn't matter. Kept his arm on him, pointed where I was stood when I came out, and then pointed to a few others. And he was telling him to applaud the crowd, and he just kept his hand on him to make sure he was sound. Luke was just great with him all day. Couldn't thank him enough.
That's brilliant. Always good to hear. Most positive part of the day, unfortunately for us. But I think obviously onto the game itself, Brad. Obviously we're 5 or so hours after full time, give or take. It's an obvious question because we've chucked away a 2-goal lead, and we'll get into the semantics of it. But how are you feeling sort of 5 hours afterwards? Because I suppose you have a bit more time to have some balance, don't you? After the kind of anger of the first hour or so, after 5 hours later, you're starting to throw a bit more balance. But that one stung a bit today for me.
I still can't wrap my head around it, mate. We've had plenty this season, games where you've said, it's a proper game of two halves. But that today was the best of Sunderland and the worst that we've seen. I can't understand how they've went from completely dictating the play, and I'm actually thinking Burnley don't even look good here. And every time they are trying to string it about, the press was outstanding. We just didn't give them a minute, and the amount of times that to come back to the keeper, we were forcing them into errors all the time. And I thought, this is surely we can't fuck this one up. And then 5 minutes after half time, you know for a fact Vincent Kompany's going to get into them. All you need to say is keep switched on for the first 10 minutes, frustrate them. And we haven't done that. Once again, we've conceded from a set play. And he's probably the smallest man in the box who's got his head on it. And that's so frustrating. Yeah, 5 hours later. I mean, if we recorded this like we done the other week, straight after, I'd have been absolutely seething. Just at the minute, I'm just a bit disappointed, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think maybe I'm being really harsh here, and because I think some people said online I was having a bit of a meltdown. I just want to guarantee, hopefully you can hear it in my voice, and hopefully people who do listen to this know I try to be a bit more balanced. I think it's just facts. I think what the season, I've been really positive, but I felt it could have been so much more positive if we're just other things that were within our control had happened. But today, like the game itself, I think what got to me a bit was I knew Burnley would come out and have a bit of a go at us. Like Burnley were never going to be as bad as they were first half, as good as we were. But I just felt like maybe the third one, but even the action of play beforehand, I don't think any of those goals were like made of Burnley just being really good. Like, and I felt like, I mean, for me, I know he was all right first half. I actually thought he was really good first half, to be honest. And we'll get on to how good the first half performance was because I don't want to forget about it because it was very good. Um, but for me, Try Hume when he puts in that tackle, put the boy in the stand. Like if he thunders into that tackle, you're lifting the crowd again. After we've just conceded the first one, there's a lad that gets free header in the box. There's something that's annoying me a little bit about the set pieces thing that we'll come on to in a bit. But the fourth goal's a mistake. I guess you could say we're chasing it a bit, and I don't necessarily know whether the ball to bar to Daniel was particularly good, but there's a few times Daniel's turned himself into trouble on the edge of his box, and it's cost us twice. I don't want to be too harsh on Daniel. I thought he was all right today, but what I'm trying to get at was all the goals weren't. There was a lot of people being like, "Oh, well, Burnley were great second half, and look where they are and stuff like that." But I don't know what I kind of want our standards to be higher because I think the team has shown they can compete with anyone in this division. I maybe today's second half was you could say, well, we didn't compete for 90, we didn't, but I don't want to be like going against Burnley and going like, oh well, they're just a class above. I think we've got enough in this team to kind of show that we can compete with teams like that, and the individual errors were what really killed us. As much play as Burnley had, and as much as they came out second half looking to get a win, take out those individual errors that we made. Somebody marks a lad on the corner. Daniel doesn't give the ball away. Try Hume puts the boy in the stand. There's 2-1. Maybe that's a bit too simplistic, but I think it was the individual errors that annoyed me because they were so switched on first half. But Brad, I do want to talk about positives because there is positives here, and I'm not that downbeat. I'm really not. Like, it might be different in a few weeks if we still haven't pulled the win out the bag. But like, I'm not even going to think about that yet. That there's time to come, I suppose. But the first half was maybe not the best we've seen this season, but it was definitely up there. Like how good was that first 45?
Yeah, like I said, I thought we were excellent first half. The thing that impressed me the most is they knew Burnley, and we knew they were going to have a lot of the ball, but we weren't allowing them time with it, and then we were just forcing them into errors. The press was brilliant. I dare say out the first half, that's probably Ahmad's best game for us. I thought he was excellent. He was getting in good areas. He's not the biggest lad, but he was always at least making a nuisance of himself if the ball was coming long. And it's two very good goals. First one's really well worked, and the second one's a great hit from Dan Neil. But it's hard, like you say, we want to stay like a little bit more upbeat. I still struggle because the second half is where we capitulated. I'm struggling to wrap my head around what has happened at half time for them to come out like that. But yeah, first half, mate. I mean, Corey Evans was excellent at recycling the play. Or if they were trying to push the ball through the middle, he was always on their number 10, you would say, or maybe he's just like the 8. And he was just nicking the ball back off and putting some good tackles in. And it just seemed like the team were working as one. But the 2nd half, it just seemed like there was so many individual performances out there. I tell you what it is, right? I can't sit here now and say which player had a really bad game. Usually, if you get beat, you say, "Oh, he was shit, he was shit, he was shit." I just think as a collective, they just didn't play as a team second half, and it's cost them.
It was.
You know what I mean?
I said first half. I turned around to the lad next to us, and I says, "You know what it is?" I says, "The older I'm getting with football, I can tell which team's going to win a game by who wins all your second balls and all your loose balls, and we were winning every second ball." I thought Embleton was excellent first half, and I don't just mean offensively because obviously you had a hand in the second goal. I thought defensively he was really good. He was nicking the ball at the right time, giving it to the right people, and I just was like, this team is picking up all these balls. The second balls, it's the first to every ball. And when Burnley are having the ball, they're just, as you said, not giving them time. And then second half, it was almost the opposite. And that's when the individual errors start creeping in. And I don't know if their heads maybe dropped when the first goal went in. I know there is a feeling in the stadium because you go and don't concede in the first 5 or 10. And then you concede and you go, oh no. because that's fans just do that. And I know that you don't want to do that, and I know it can have a negative effect, but you cannot help it. You cannot help it when you go, oh, please don't concede just before halftime, or please don't concede just after halftime. Because 2-0 is such a dodgy scoreline. And then when you concede, but then, I mean, I do want to concentrate on the first half of it because it was such a positive 45 minutes. But it's funny. Someone said on the way out, they went, oh, I'd rather just get nicked 1-0 in that game than go 2-0 up and then just get battered second half. And I guess it's weird in a way because we've had a brilliant first 45 and a honking second 45, but it still would be technically better than like a really average 90 and still losing. Doesn't really matter. But I think it's the way we lost it, not the fact that we did lose it, because I do think Burnley are a good side, to be fair. But it's those individual errors that we made. And I think, it's testament to the lads as well, a lot of it, that they've set such high standards this season and set such high standards for a decent amount of time now, dare I say, since Alex Neil came in many ways. They've set a standard that we expect. I wouldn't say we expect more from them. I think they expect more from themselves. Like, as good as that first 45 was, I've got full belief that this side can do that even without strikers, because I think we're a good side. I do think we're a good side. And I think that's what disappoints me so much, that when I go, oh, why do you do that? What do you do that for? Oh, no. like you can hear the disappointment in me, and maybe I haven't chilled out enough with it. But I think just before we do leave that first half, obviously, Embo for me was terrific. He was excellent. I'd say Tri-Hume was excellent, but I thought he was a horrendous second half, if I'm honest with you. I thought Dennis Serkin was poor all game, if I'm completely blunt. But the first half had a lot of good performances. Who impressed you from that first 45 the most?
I think we've mentioned the three. I would say Ahmad, Embleton, and first half Trey-Hume. I thought he was good. He really was. He was overlapping. He was linking play up well. And I'm sure we'll listen to the podcast that has Bowers on. He'll give him a 5, his usual 5, because second half he was diabolical. I mean they were my 3 first half, because Embleton was everywhere. Ahmad was dangerous every time he got the ball. And like I said, Tri-Hume played well behind Ahmad. They were my 3 first half, and to be honest, I think as a collective they all just sort of dipped, but it wasn't like if we'd have dipped like that against another team, I don't think it would have been as bad. But they have got quality, like I said, that their goals were avoidable. But look, the third one's an absolute peach. You could say if you flip it, their fourth goal, yes, I know it's a horrendous ball from Bart to Dan Neil, but they've done what we were doing first half. They've got on the press, but high up, and they've nicked it. And if that does, we say that's a great goal. That's a great bit of forward play. So let's leave the positives. Let's go on to the second half, because that's all I can think about with the minute.
That's the thing. I'm trying to speak about the first half and talk about the positive, and then go, but and that's just the way it is. It's not negativity. I think you'll know when I'm negative. You'll know when I'm having a meltdown. Trust us, I've had real life ones. This is not me having a meltdown. There's concern because the league is so tight. And I know some people have said, but we're only 5 points off 6th, but our form doesn't dictate that we're going to get those 5 points and suddenly jump into 6th, like at the moment. I hope we do. Pray that we do. And have I got confidence that this team could do that and put egg on my face? Absolutely. Of course I do. But results are what matter at the moment. Performances maybe need to be less important than results for me at the minute. Diallo, I've liked him since he's come in. I thought he took his goal quite well, if I'm honest. I thought he got in a good position. I thought he looked very dangerous. I really like how hard he works. I didn't expect that. I expected a bit of a show pony, and I saw a bit of that when I used to watch him when he was at Rangers, but he worked really hard, and I like that. Lo and behold, I think a few people seen him coming out today out the stadium with a protective boot on. obviously that could just be precautionary. Like I'm not a medical person, so I don't know. But if that is a bad one or one that could put him up for a few weeks, we're really getting down to the bare bones, especially with Roberts out today. We don't know how long that's going to be. Hopefully it's just a 1 week thing, but we've got no strikers. Roberts, Diallo potentially out, Alessi's out for 4 weeks. I don't like using excuses in any way, shape, size, or form, but we're going to have to start dealing with these injuries. How do we deal with them?
We just plod on for the next 4, mate, then we get a break. I did speak to Lyndon and Patrick when Archie was coming off the pitch and just said, how long are you two back? Gooch said, I'll be fit next week. And Patrick said, it's just for this game. So I don't imagine Patrick will be out too long. I just think it's just one of them. He's just picked up a little knock in training. Don't risk him. But it is alarming if these knocks, if especially if the World Cup wasn't coming. I mean, we've slated the World Cup being placed when it is, but I don't think it could come at a better time for us now. I'm so grateful that Qatar got the World Cup. Yeah, it is worrying because the depth we've got is just kids. And if we start losing games to the point where we're going to be looking over our shoulder, these kids are going to be untested with this extra pressure on them. Whereas if you have a few more experienced heads, they could be prepared. They know what it's all about in English football. My worry is that this form doesn't improve, and by the World Cup break comes round, we could be like a point, 2 points away from the bottom 4, as opposed to what we were doing about 3 weeks ago from near the top. And now I know signing the experienced players doesn't fit the model, but if that's the state of where we're going to be coming out of the World Cup break into the January window, that model needs to change, because the Speakman's now seen that we haven't got the depth, we haven't got extra strikers, we've had a couple of injuries to key centre halves, and our most experienced centre half, or one of, can't even get a look in, and I can't understand that. So yeah, the injuries are quite concerning. I'm just thankful. I know that Gucci said he'll be back next week, and Patrick Roberts said he should be all right for next week as well. So touch wood, nothing happens in training this week.
Two things on that with you mentioned there. I wrote these down as a discussion point. Mowbray was discussing, but he said we all know the problems that we're having with set pieces. And he kind of made an indication that we have to just try and deal with it until we get essentially our tall players back, which you mentioned. I know he's not a brooding, massive 6'4" bloke, but one of the best defenders, in my opinion, at the club is sitting on the bench. And Bailey Wright, and he's missing again. And for me, she's going to change everything. But if we're struggling on corners, I kind of like Bailey Wright to be there, both offensively and defensively, because for me, you could have played your back 3 today. You could have played Luke on the left. You could have put Bailey Wright on the right. Bailey can put a ball in. He's not necessarily that slow getting forward. He put some nice balls in last season when he's playing on the right-hand side of the 3. You could put Bart in the middle, and you could release Circle into your left wing-back position. You know, unless he's out, so there's a space there. But I don't quite understand the idea of we're struggling on set pieces, and yet Bailey Wright, who's probably one of our strongest at getting rid of the ball, kind of get a look in. I don't understand what's going on with Bailey Wright at the moment, Brad. Am I missing something?
No, I'm completely agreeing with you on that one. That's one thing I think Mowbray got really wrong today. Even if he wanted to stay to a back 4, give it a little bit more tight at the back. Why not put Wright in alongside Barton, put Luke at right back? He's played at right back. He played second half against Wigan at right back, and we played really well. But he's chucked in Trey Hume, who again might have a lot of promise going forward, but that's effectively his first game, apart from a couple of cameos. That's his first start against one of the better teams in this league, It happened last season with Alex Neil. He threw him on for the Rotherham game, and that backfired pretty much because he was honking then. I'd have had Luke at right back, and I'd have had Bailey at centre half, to be honest, because then your entire back four are good in the air and they're strong.
I think as well, like, when did we last have a clean sheet? And I can't criticize Luke or Danny Barr. I think in my mind they've both been decent, but I kind of but I mean, 2 against Blackburn, I know that's the first one's a good strike, and it was a penalty beforehand, and the second one's offside, so okay. But we're not keeping many clean sheets. We conceded 4 today, conceded 1 against Wigan last week. And we were really poor for 45 minutes against Wigan. It was like the opposite of this week, really, the Wigan game. We conceded 2 at Swansea in the first half. We're conceding goals, and Bailey Wright's just sort of sat on the bench. I don't think it's the answer to all of our problems, bringing Bailey Wright in. I don't think it's going to fix everything, but I think we need to start looking at him now, because he was tremendous in the back end of last season. He was tremendous in the playoff run, and for me, I just feel a bit safer with him there at the minute. On corners, I think there's someone that's gonna, because Danny, don't get me wrong, not that I don't like Danny Barr, I love him. I think he's been probably one of our best players of the season, if not the best. But he can't do it on his own, and I think Bailey would help him with that. Would you put Bailey back in?
100%. You've got to think, like you just touched on the end of last season, them two formed a cracking partnership in a run where we didn't lose or lost one in however many it was towards the end, 15, 16 games. It just, I can't get my head around it. He's meant to be going to a World Cup in 4 or 5 games' time. He's got some of what he needs to prove to his national coach, that he should be there. And at the minute, he's not even getting a look in. And we've got a defender crisis. Now, I understand naturally he should be there as a backup to Danny Bart, which is fine. I think he understands that. But when he's seeing the rest of the team dropping like flies in his position, he's not getting a look in. What's that doing to him? I mean, how old is he? Coming on 30, just over 30. He's into that, just knocking past his prime years. He wants to be playing as much as possible. We've won 1 in the last 8, and we're starting to ship a few goals. What have I got to do to get a look in? Because I don't think there's one Sunderland fan that would say no to having Bailey Wright in the side. If he comes in as a stinker and it doesn't work, but with him not in the side, we're asking a lot of what ifs, and I don't know what's happening, because we were touching on at the end of last season in the pre-season pod, who do we need to retain? And we said Bailey Wright was the top of the list for us for this league out of the players that were out of contract. We kept him, and he's just not playing at all, and I can't get my head around it, mate.
I think one big thing with Bailey as well is he's a leader. He's captained the club loads of times, and I'd have liked someone that wasn't just a young boy that pressure's on his shoulders. Going back to the options we've got, I think these young boys are all right. I've liked what I've seen them. I think I like when Benetti comes on. I kind of think he looks very raw, but there's something to work with. I've been really impressed with Barr when he comes on. There's a lot of these players that we have brought in that I'm really impressed by, and I want them to have the freedom to play the way they want to play. I don't want results to go. We've seen today sometimes there can be a bit naive, and I think that's been kind with the second half performance. I want them to be able to play with that freedom still that they've played with the majority of the season. I don't want them to have to start worrying about like crunch games against Huddersfield on a Tuesday night, because I don't know, it's not, as you said before, they haven't had that experience. And I just think having someone like a Bailey Wright on the pitch would also help these young boys in games in general. Just a real leader. You can see he's really liked around the club. But I think ultimately, very good defender. In my personal opinion, he's been on form for well over a year for Sunderland, and hasn't had luck in this year with conceding goals. But by the by, I also thought we really missed Roberts today. I think we really missed Stewart / and/or Sims. We definitely missed Ross Stewart, but I think what would have been a nice outlet today was maybe when we were getting bombarded a bit just before the second goal, when it was just like coming in all the time and we had no outlet, giving it to someone like Roberts to just run with the ball, just to carry it a bit, because he does carry it really well. But home form, Brad, there is reasons behind it. There is definitely a bit of nuance you can have through it. And I raised this point on Twitter. Should never raise any points on Twitter, because Twitter's got far too many opinions. But it's 2 wins and 8 at home. Is that a concern for you? Or looking at the teams that we've played at home, is it less of a concern? Because to be fair, someone raised this point back to me, and it was a fair point. If you look at the championship table, sort of the home games that we've had, in terms of who we're coming up against and stuff like that, and where we've got results, yes, we only got a win against Wigan and Rotherham, which were the teams that we've come up against. But looking at the top 6, with QPR at top, we've got a point from that. Burnley at 3rd. Norwich is 6th. We got beat off Norwich. Preston at 10th. And then you've got Rotherham in 11th, who was one of the teams that we beat. We haven't really played many of the bottom 12 at home. Like, we've played Coventry, who were 3rd bottom. We've played Wigan, who we beat, who were 19th. Played Blackpool, who were 18th. Got a draw with them. No one else we've actually played at home. So is the home form a concern based on just the 2 wins and 8, or do you think that there's more of a point that we've actually played a lot of good teams at home, so maybe that balances out and makes a bit more sense?
It would be more of a concern if we were losing more than we were at home, but we've picked up quite a few draws. Was it 2 wins, 2 defeats, 4 draws? A few of them draws were defeats, yeah, it would be a big concern, but at the minute, no. I think that the lads will turn it around at home, especially. I mean, our away form has been, until the last couple of games, has been brilliant. I just think we're having a little bit of a lull. We knew it was coming because, like you've touched on, the striker issue, and like you also touched on, not having Patrick Roberts as one outlet. But if you have Roberts and or Stewart or Sims, you've got 2 outlets there. You've got Roberts, who could run up with the ball and take some pressure off us, or you can just shell a ball up to Ross Stewart and Ellis Sims, who will just shield it or at least chase it down. Gives you something else. But today you could just see, and we were playing it short. There was no sort of outlet. Luke just had all of the ball for a bit, and then he gave it to Danny Bard. There was just nothing for them to go to. No, I'm not worried about the home form yet. I think once we get to January, it'll start to tell. I think usually we say, is it 10 to 12, 15 games? Then the teams start sort of leveling out where they're going to be. This league's crazy this year. I think it's going to take until about January, till everyone's played each other once, before we even have any idea where people are going to be. But we do need to start picking up points at home and quickly. But at this moment of speaking, I'm not overly concerned, shall I say.
I feel like I'm right in the middle, and I feel like that's a difficult place to be, because you don't want to get overly positive, but if you get negative, you feel like you're dragging yourself into this place where you don't know if you really need to be it, because form's been all right, and up until today, I don't think there's any game that's like took the stuffing out of me. I was at Borough, and I was like, ugh, well, there's reasons for that. QPR was like, ugh, that's frustrating. Today knocked the stuffing out of me a little bit, and I started going, we're only 4 points off the relegation, and I know we're only 5 points off the top 6. I get that, but I just felt the form, I was looking downwards, and it's the first time I've done that. Bit of a shame. I'm quite reluctant to criticise Tony Mowbray because I've actually liked him a lot. I think I preferred Alex Neil, dare I say it. But I think Tony Mowbray's done a decent enough job with the cards that he's been dealt, and at points we've even looked like a more attractive team than the team that Alex Neil had, and less pragmatic. But I'll admit I've got a slight concern. And hopefully it is just that slight concern and it doesn't change. I think he's a bit stubborn, and I thought he made the changes in midfield too late today, and I think he's kind of ploughing on with a similar setup, even when you can see it needs freshening up a little bit. Is he being a bit stubborn? Is a bit of concern with that, or do you think again I'm being a bit harsh?
Um, really, I wouldn't say it's stubborn. He's he's literally picking the players who are the tried and tested ones, and it's the ones who've got at least somewhat a bit of experience, except for Billy White. The other ones are unknowns. So he's just thinking, do you throw these kids in, which is going to be a baptism of fire, really? And it's a bit of the unknown. And he'll get peppered if you threw them in too early and they had a bad game or anything like that. Tony Mowbray would get absolutely like rinsed off everyone. So I think I wouldn't say he's stubborn. I just think he's while we're in the predicament we're in with the lack of depth, he hasn't got a choice. I really don't. There's only maybe one or two changes that you could make. One being Bailey Wright, and then you've got the likes of Robertson Gooch to come back, and we will see changes. Chad Hume will come out, and it might freshen it up slightly. But like I've said, we need to get past these next 4 games. I can't see Sims. I know he said he might be back for Luton next week. Would you want to see him come back and then get an injury which keeps him out a bit longer, or do you just like literally think we go for it in these next 4 games? Anything can happen, and we just persevere with what we've got because we are playing good football. And it's just that final third now and again. There was times today Jack Clark done it again, like he done against Blackburn. He's running across the edge of the box. I know it came off well first half because we scored. But in the second half, just hit it. I'd much rather him hit it and it go 5 yards over the bar than not have an attempt at all, because that's even more frustrating.
I'm not on Jack Clark actually. I'm not sure on him in the centre. I feel, and I know it's slim pickings. I know it's either you put Pritchard there, that didn't work. We tried Diallo there, that didn't work. But for me, it's not so much what Jack Clark does when he's in the centre; it's how much he's taken away from the game. He does so much when he's on that left hand side. He gets us up the pitch. He panics right backs because he's got to go both ways. And I just feel like when he's up front, he's spending too much time battling to try and win the ball and hold it up. I think when he gets the ball into him and you can just take his man on, that's where Jack Clark's best. But again, I suppose, before I was saying that maybe critiquing Tony Mowbray, but you're probably right, mate. Like, what can he do at the moment? He's been hamstrung, hasn't he? Like, by not
What
having a
would you do?
striker. Me, I would have signed a striker on deadline day, but that's not Tony
Yeah.
Mowbray's job. Like, but I hate coming back to it because I know people are saying the bored of it now. But we said what would happen, and I don't think today's result can be blamed on it. But my worry since the beginning of that happening was we would draw the games that we would probably win with a centre forward on the pitch, and we would lose the games we might hopefully draw with a centre forward on the pitch. Today is not in that inclusion because I think that was just down to individual mistakes from ourselves. But I feel like because of us, like Preston, Blackpool, those sort of games, even Swansea, you could say, if there's a Ross Stewart or another Sims you could bring on later on, maybe we could have nicked a draw out with that. Maybe that's not the best example, but I feel like slowly the confidence has been eroded from the fact that we look a bit toothless in a lot of games, or you go, oh, if we had a striker, could X, Y, and Z have happened? And I feel like the confidence has been eroded a little bit, and momentum's so massive in football. We've seen it with the way we went up last year. It was so massive, the momentum across the board between fans, staff, players. You felt it, but the momentum can swing the other way. And I was really worried that the kind of nothing to hit, literally no strikers, having to play with 70 million midfielders would erode confidence finally because the results would be frustrating as opposed to horrendous. And today's result, although it's got nothing to do with the strikers, to be fair, well, it might add some impact. You could say something could hold it up top, but essentially, I think that's looking too far into it. Today's like a result where you go, oh God, we've just chucked away 2-goal result, and I feel negative about it. Like, and I know people are gonna give me pelters for that because I think people want to remain positive, and I commend them for that. But that was always my worry with the strikers thing, that eventually confidence would erode. But hopefully it won't. I mean, obviously there's time. We're 4 points off the bottom three, but we're 5 points off the top six, Brad. So this could go either way. Final question, but the league is really tight. We said last week 4 points we would literally snap your hand off. 2 points we said we'd be happy with from Blackburn and Burnley. We got 0, conceded 6, scored 2. Next up, we've got Luton, who are doing all right. They're another top 10 team away from home. Then we've got Huddersfield, they're currently bottom of the league. For me, just to keep our heads above water heading into the World Cup, I think we need at least 3 points from that to ensure that we're looking up the table and not down. How many points do you think we need? And how many points do you think we'll get?
I think 3's the minimum. Anything less than 3, then it could be panic stations, to be honest. Not completely, but anything less than 3 points, because the way the league is at the minute, like you said, people are beating everyone. And my worry is we don't pick up at least 3 from these. We could be a point from the bottom 3 easily. And who knows then? You've got 2 more games before the World Cup after these 2, and then them do become absolutely must win. And I don't want to be feeling like that. Only 20 games in the season. So, yeah, like you said about today as well, I'm not angry. I sound like a dar. I'm just disappointed. But I can say that because all the players are kids, so I can say I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
I feel like I can normally laugh, but it's took the stuff at me a bit today. Like, hopefully that'll fix soon. But I think Luton away is tough, but it's not impossible. Hopefully Sims is back. I feel much more confident with Sims playing. I really like Sims. I know some people aren't 100% on him. I really liked him from what I could see. Not Ross Stewart, but who is? Huddersfield, I think we've got to win that. I think we've got to beat Huddersfield. Unless we beat Luton. I don't know if we will. I fancy us to get something at Luton. We haven't gone 3. I don't think we've had 3 defeats in a row this season. I think, to be fair to the lads, as much as today was poor, I do think they've got a good mentality. I do think they fight for each other. So I think we could get something at Luton. And then Huddersfield still becomes really big. And then you've got Cardiff at home. The interesting thing is the league's that tight. We could be sitting here in 3 weeks' time and being like, what we're worried about, 7th off top, 6th off top, or whatever. Or we could be like, oh God, we're second bottom. And that's the kind of, in such a divided world of football where everyone has this kind of opinion, there's very little nuance or balance. Sometimes, like, this is the worst kind of league table for it. Because if you're negative, you're going, like me, you're going 4 points. And if you're positive, you're going 5 points of the playoffs. When realistically, we're just smack bang in the middle, probably because we're like the 12th best side in the league. Or maybe even better without injuries. But ultimately, I think not too downhearted. And I think there was lots of positives today. Yeah, there was lots of negatives, which probably balance it out. But it doesn't feel like we're in trouble yet. Next few weeks could be, but on the flip side, there could also be, we could be fine. We could win a couple of games. It's a pivotal point in the season, though, Brad, isn't it? It's a pivotal point where I think we said it the other week, could these next few games define where the league looks? I think these definitely will define, are we going to be looking up or looking down the table this season? And I don't mind finishing in the middle and looking up. I just don't want to be finishing near the bottom and looking down all the time. I cannot really be bothered with that. And I don't think this team and the quality that's within it deserves to be where they're at. So are you feeling positive going in the next few weeks? I feel like I've been dead negative. Well, it is what it is.
the 2 away games, and we play better away from home. That's all. That's keeping my up. That's my positivity at the minute. Do I think that we can go there and get 6 points off these teams? Absolutely. There's no reason why we can't. Well, there is one reason: we haven't got strikers. But based on how we play, we're more than capable of going and get 6 points from these two or 4 points. But we're also more than capable of going away and getting 0 or getting 1. Both games we're going to have a big following there, so hopefully the fans can do their bits like they have all season. To be honest, again, the crowd there today, excellent. Yeah, I'm gonna stay positive because I've still seen enough from the team itself that we have got enough in us. And if we get the likes of Gooch back and Roberts back, possibly even Sims on the bench, but I still don't believe he will be. Yeah, we do have the talent there. We do. And anyone that says we don't, it's just been a bit stupid, to be honest.
I think we do have talent. Yeah, I agree.
Like we said, we'd be more than happy with this come the end of the season. It's the fact that these players have got us in such a good position, and then it's just sort of dipped. That's the frustration because we know where we could have been. But these are the same group of players minus 1 or 2 that gave us that great start. So there's no reason at all why they can't give us a good middle of the season now. Well, there is a reason again, no strikers. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is something in them. So there's no stopping them going to do that. But time will tell. We'll just see what happens.
Brad, thanks so much for joining me. It wasn't always the easiest one to do. I didn't really fancy doing it, but we commit to the cause, don't we? People have stopped listening to the preview shows, so please like, subscribe, and tune in, or I might just stop it. All right, there's your warning. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and enjoy weekend. On a serious note, and fingers crossed it'll be much more positive next week.